I never thought my life could change in one single day. I was living a simple life with my father in a small town. We did not have much money, but we had peace. I trusted my father more than anyone in the world. He was my only family, my protection and my guide. I believed he would never hurt me. That morning started like any other. I woke up early and helped my father prepare breakfast. He was quiet, more than usual. His eyes avoided mine, but I did not question it. I thought he was worried about money again. Life had been hard for us since my mother died. Bills were unpaid, and food was often limited, but still, I felt safe with him. After breakfast, my father told me we were going to visit someone in the city. He said it was important and that it could help our future. I felt nervous but trusted his words. We traveled for hours. The city felt loud and cold compared to our small town. I held my bag tightly as we walked through unfamiliar streets. We entered a large house. Everything looked expensive. A man and a woman were sitting inside, well-dressed and serious. They looked at me in a way that made my heart beat faster. I did not understand why. My father spoke to them quietly. I could not hear their words, but I could feel something was wrong. The woman smiled at me and asked my name. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes felt empty. The man nodded slowly, as if he was deciding something important. I looked at my father, waiting for him to explain. He avoided my eyes again. After some time, my father told me to wait in another room. I felt scared, but I obeyed. Minutes felt like hours. My hands were shaking. I kept thinking about home, about my room, about the life I knew. When my father returned, his face looked heavy, like he was carrying a secret. He placed a small bag in my hands and said softly, "You will stay here for some time." I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. But he did not smile. My chest felt tight. I asked him what he meant. The door closed softly, but the sound felt loud inside my chest. I stood frozen in the middle of the room, holding the small bag my father had given me. My mind refused to accept what had just happened. I kept telling myself he would come back. He always did. This had to be a misunderstanding. The woman guided me to a clean, but unfamiliar room. The walls were plain, and the window looked out onto a street I did not recognize. She told me to sit and rest. Her voice was calm, but it did not comfort me. When she left, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the door, waiting for it to open again. Minutes passed. Then hours. No one came. My heart began to race as reality slowly settled in. I tried to remember every word my father had said that morning, searching for a clue, a warning I had missed. Tears filled my eyes, but I forced myself not to cry. I did not want to seem weak in this strange place. Later, the man I had seen earlier came into the room. He spoke politely and asked simple questions about my age, my education, and my health. His tone was calm, almost kind, but his questions made me uncomfortable. I answered quietly, choosing my words carefully. I felt like an object being examined, not a person being cared for. That evening, I was given food. It tasted fine, but I could barely eat. My thoughts were stuck on one question: why? Why would my father do this to me? Had I done something wrong? Was I not a good daughter? The pain of those thoughts hurt more than hunger. As night came, I lay awake on the unfamiliar bed. Every sound made me jump. The house felt too quiet, too controlled. I hugged my bag tightly, as if it was the last piece of my old life. Inside it were a few clothes and a small photo of my family. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. Days passed slowly. I was not hurt, but I was not free either. I was watched, guided, and told when to eat and sleep. No one explained how long I would stay, or what would happen next. Every day, on the third day, I finally understood that waiting would not bring answers. No one explained why I was there or what my future would be. The house followed a strict routine. I was told when to wake up, when to eat, and when to rest. Everything was clean and quiet, but the silence felt heavy, like it was pressing on my chest. I began to notice small details. The doors were always locked. The windows could open, but only a little. There were cameras in the hallway, watching silently. I realized I was not a guest. I was being kept. That thought scared me, but I tried not to show it on my face. I learned quickly that showing fear made people treat you differently. One afternoon, the woman sat with me and spoke gently. She told me I was safe and that I should not worry. She said my father had made a decision for my future. That word hurt more than anything else. A decision. As if my life was a simple choice he could give away. I asked her when I could go home. She avoided the question and changed the subject. That night, I cried quietly into my pillow. I missed my small room, the sound of my father coughing in the morning, and the simple meals we shared. Even our poor life felt rich compared to this controlled comfort. I realized that safety without freedom is still a kind of prison. The next days taught me how alone I really was. I was not allowed to leave the house. I could not call anyone. My phone was gone. My world had become very small. Just a few rooms and unfamiliar faces. I felt invisible, like my thoughts and feelings did not matter anymore. Still, something inside me refused to break. I started paying attention to everything, the schedule, the people, the rules. I memorized patterns and listened carefully to conversations. I knew I had to stay calm and smart. Fear could not guide me. Awareness had to. I also began talking to myself in my mind, reminding myself who I was before this place. I was not a thing. I was a person with memories, dreams. Life inside the house slowly began to feel unreal, like I was living in someone else's story. Each day followed the same pattern. I woke up early, ate quietly, and spent long hours sitting alone with my thoughts. The woman checked on me often, asking if I needed anything, but her kindness felt controlled, not caring. I learned that every smile in this house had limits. One afternoon, I was allowed to sit in the living room for the first time. The room was large and beautifully decorated, but it felt cold. I sat on the sofa, holding my hands together to stop them from shaking. The man entered and sat across from me. He spoke calmly, explaining that I would soon be part of a new family arrangement. His words were slow and careful, but they confused me even more. I asked him what he meant. He told me I should be grateful, because my life would be better here. Better food, better clothes, better opportunities. I listened, but none of those things mattered to me. I did not ask for comfort. I wanted my freedom. I wanted answers. Most of all, I wanted to understand why my father had agreed to this. That night, I could not sleep. My thoughts kept returning to my father's face when he left. Was he ashamed? Was he desperate? Or did he truly believe this was best for me? The questions hurt more than the silence. I realized that sometimes betrayal does not come from strangers, but from the people we trust the most. Over the next few days, I noticed how carefully my life was being planned by others. Decisions were made without me. Conversations stopped when I entered the room. I felt smaller every day, like my voice was slowly disappearing. Still, I tried to remain calm. I reminded myself that fear would only make things worse. I began to write my thoughts secretly in my mind, replaying them again and again so I would not forget who I was. I held on to my memories, my values, and my sense of self. Even though my body was trapped, I refused to let my mind belong to. By the 5th week, I had learned how to hide my emotions. I smiled when I was expected to smile and stayed quiet when silence was safer. Inside, however, my thoughts never rested. I observed everything closely, the routines, the people, and the moments when the house felt less guarded. I understood now that surviving here required patience and control. One day, a new woman arrived at the house. She was younger than the others and spoke to me with a softer tone. She asked about my hobbies, my studies, and what I liked to do before coming here. Her questions felt normal, almost human, and that scared me more than the cold behavior of the others. Normal conversations made the situation feel real, and reality was painful. She told me that soon my life would change again. I did not know whether that meant something good or something worse. The uncertainty was exhausting. Every time someone mentioned the future, my stomach tightened. My future no longer felt like something I owned. It felt like an object being passed from one hand to another. At night, I dreamed of my old home. I saw my small room, the cracked walls, and the window where I used to watch the rain. In my dreams, my father was there too. Sometimes he cried and asked for forgiveness. Other times, he stood far away, silent and unreachable. I woke up every morning with the same heavy feeling in my chest. During the day, I helped with small tasks around the house. Cooking, cleaning, arranging things, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind distracted. Staying active helped me feel less powerless. It reminded me that I was still capable, still alive, still thinking. I began to understand that pain changes people. It teaches you to see clearly, to question trust, and to rely on yourself. I was no longer the girl who believed love always protected you. I was becoming someone stronger, quieter, and more aware of the world's cruelty. Sometimes, I stood near the window and watched people outside. Time passed slowly, but something inside me began to change. I was no longer only afraid. I was thinking, planning, and learning. I understood the rules of the house better now. I knew who watched closely and who looked away. I knew which hours were quiet and which moments were filled with movement. This knowledge gave me a small sense of control. One afternoon, I was asked to sit with the man again. He spoke about responsibility and sacrifice, using serious words that felt heavy in the air. He said my father had made a choice, because he had no other option. Hearing this made my chest tighten. I wanted to scream that poverty is not an excuse to sell a child's life. But I stayed silent. Silence was my shield. After that meeting, I felt anger growing inside me. Not loud anger, but a steady fire. It was no longer only about fear or sadness. It was about dignity. I realized that I deserved to be heard, to be respected, and to choose my own life. This realization hurt, but it also made me stronger. At night, I started imagining a future where I was free. I imagined walking outside without permission, choosing where to go, and speaking without fear. These thoughts became my secret escape. They helped me survive the long, quiet hours when hope felt far away. I also thought about my father differently now. I still felt pain, but I no longer searched for excuses for him. I understood that love should never destroy another person's freedom. Accepting this truth was difficult, but it helped me see things clearly. One evening, as I stood near the window, I noticed the gate left open for a few seconds longer than usual. It was nothing certain, nothing safe, but it was something. My heart beat faster. I knew then that awareness creates opportunity. I was not ready to act yet, but I was ready to believe in myself. I was no longer just surviving. I was preparing. Deep inside, I made a promise. If a chance ever came, I would not hesitate. I had already lost too much to. The days that followed felt heavier, but clearer. I understood my situation better now, and that understanding changed me. I no longer waited for someone to rescue me. I no longer searched for excuses or explanations. I accepted the truth of what had happened to me, and acceptance gave me strength. Fear still existed, but it no longer controlled my thoughts. I paid attention to everything. The sounds of footsteps, the timing of doors, the moments when the house felt less watchful. I learned when people were distracted and when the silence was deepest. My mind stayed alert, calm, and focused. I reminded myself every day that I was not weak for surviving. I was strong for enduring. At night, I reflected on my past. I thought about the girl I was before, trusting, hopeful, unaware of how cruel the world could be. That girl was gone, but in her place stood someone stronger. Pain had shaped me, but it had not destroyed me. I realized that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit searches for light. I also thought about forgiveness. Not because my pain was small, but because holding anger forever would only hurt me more. I did not know if I could ever forgive my father, but I knew I could choose not to let his decision define my entire life. I deserved more than a story of betrayal. I deserved a future of my own making. One quiet morning, as sunlight entered the room, I felt something I had not felt in a long time, clarity. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure, my voice mattered. My life mattered. I was not something to be sold, traded, or controlled. I was a human being. My journey had changed me forever. I would carry the scars, the memories, and the lessons with me. But I would also carry courage, awareness, and the will to choose differently when given the chance. This chapter of my life was painful, but it was not the end of my story. It was the moment I truly understood my worth. If this story touched your heart, please like the